Welcome everyone to the Automates Who Innovate webinar series. I'm M. Daigle, founder of Automates, and I'm thrilled as always to be hosting today's conversation. I've spent my career at the intersection of accounting, finance, and technology, and that's why I founded Automates. And if you've listened to me before, you'll know I believe that there isn't a perfect tech stack out there. Like I always say, I think there's the right solution for the right problem at the right place at the right time. So Automates Who Innovates is our webinar series that highlights game changers in the field, accountants who have adopted technology, and built some automation focused teams. So I can't wait for you to hear from Cody Lancaster, CFO at CX Connect. Hey, Cody, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Em. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. So let's start with having you introduce yourself and walk us through your career journey up to your current role at CX Connect.
Sure. So I have been the CFO at CXConnect.ai for a little over 10 years. We still consider ourselves a startup, although we've been in it for a long time, and the product is fairly mature. We have been in the game. We're now Series A funded, venture backed in the enterprise space,
Nice.
doing SaaS for customer experience industry. And prior to this, I was a firefighter. So I took a little gap. I don't know if I shared that with you, Em.
You did not.
Yeah, I took a gap career, kind of pierced my finance career in the middle because I said, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. The CFO rolled back in, and I decided to come back to it. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And at CXConnect.ai, we are now at $2 million in ARR and 8 employees. And I feel like a little more context would be good for the community to understand some of the decisions we've made and how we automate things and do things, which is when we raised Series A money at the heels of those great valuations, those juicy revenue multipliers at the end of 2021, we had about 3.6 million in ARR and 30 employees. And so,
wow.
Yeah, I was brought on, just before that in a full-time capacity to kind of take us to that next level in a lot of operational ways, and certainly in the accounting and finance function. As we know, those multipliers deflated, and the name of the game is no longer growth at all costs. Not that we were really allocating capital in that way. We've always been fairly judicious about allocating capital to milestones. However, we definitely pivoted to cash flow profitability. And I'm happy to say that we are just, I think, months away, really a few deals away from that moment. Thank you. Big company milestone for us. But in that journey, we had multiple rifts, including my finance org, which was a 2-person org, including myself, is now I'm in single player mode. So I think that also gives you some context in terms of the tools I've chosen to use to do some of those things that a controller used to do for me and with me. So we've had a painful road the past couple of years. It's really been kind of waking up every day, getting kicked in the crotch, smiling and asking for another. But I think we're coming through, and we're very optimistic about our pipeline and the company's product and our place in it. So that's kind of the context with which I want to share with the community kind of why some of these decisions that we'll discuss were made and what we do.
I think that's great. I appreciate the context. I did not know the firefighter journey either, which is commendable. So thank you for that. Also,
100%.
Though, at the risk of sounding super dorky and making a joke, looks like you fight fires everywhere.
I make the same joke when people say, "Oh, what a 180-degree turn." I'm like, actually, it's just fighting fires in a different way. So I say
really
the same.
Funny. Okay, perfect. I was dying to make that joke, so I had to make it. And sorry for everybody listening.
You nailed it.
Okay, perfect. So that being said, though, obviously with the rifts and everything you've had since 2021, like many others, whether it's a team of one, a team that went from 50 to 40, whatever it is, right? We're always being tasked to do more with less, unfortunately. So thinking through that, I imagine in your 10-year span there, the challenges that you've seen that would be up for automation have probably shifted quite a bit. So maybe we'll focus most on the last few years, because I think that's particularly relevant to how you and I came to be in touch with the folks over at Campfire had introduced us. But I know you and I have spoke about a number of different tools that you're utilizing. So I think it's going to be really great for everybody to hear a little more tactically about some of those things that you're using. But maybe we can start there, like from that 2021 point, where did you see the biggest challenge where you chose to like maybe prioritize some automation?
I would say the biggest pressure and impetus for change was costs. As I mentioned, it was now,
Yeah.
hey, we got to get to profitability and we got to do it fast.
Mm-hmm.
So that really led the biggest, I would say, cost savings and automation shift from NetSuite, which we were on because we were multi-entity with an international subsidiary and multi-currency, to Campfire, which is a relatively new player in the ERP space. And NetSuite is obviously very expensive. It works, but I was generally dissatisfied with it. While RevRec is automated in NetSuite, it is not by any means delightful to use, nor is it quick and easy. Right? Anyone that's on NetSuite can probably, if they're honest, agree that just to every process typically takes about 10 to 15 mouse clicks, and I had to consult a how-to guide that we created internally just to book revenue every month. My controller did at the time. So it was automated to a degree, but maybe not simple, clean, and easy and delightful. So your question, what was the pressure for change? That was an expensive subscription. And when I found Campfire and they were able to do the multi-entity, multi-currency consolidation, and I have no profit incentive in touting Campfire. I will sound like I'm shilling their product, but it really is amazing, and the customer service and the team there at Campfire is amazing. So now revenue it's still an equal level of automation, but what's different with Campfire is the ease, quickness, and flexibility of the tool compared to NetSuite. And I don't have experience with Sage, but I would assume that it's probably true in that case as well. And so when I think about this transition, we actually, if you've heard the project management maxim or the engineering maxim of faster, easier, cheaper, faster, better, cheaper, whichever variation, pick two. Well, in this case, in the move from NetSuite, we violated that. We actually got all three. So, and I wouldn't say cheaper, but less expensive, right? So it's faster to use, it's more flexible, it's more delightful, it's easier, and less expensive. So same level of automation, like revenue recognition is still automated, but it's quicker and easier.
Yep, that's great. Now, just because in my experience, I know a little bit about the implementation side as well. I'm curious, when you made that shift from NetSuite to Campfire, like what did that look like?
Oh, it was amazing. So, and let's contrast it with when I migrated previously from our QuickBooks alternative to NetSuite. It was a 100-day implementation. It was weekly check-ins. Myself and my controller were involved pretty heavily. It was an ordeal. I mean, everybody knows NetSuite, any ERP implementation is not going to be fun, right? Contrast that with Campfire. I told them, I said, hey, my subscription with NetSuite ends in 2 months. I want to run 1 month in parallel, my last month in parallel in both systems. And I want 2 years of transactional data pumped in. And they said, no problem. And they said, it'll cost you $0. And I didn't have a meeting with them. They got it done. I gave them access to NetSuite. And about 2 weeks later, they said, your Campfire environment is ready, sir. And I said, thank you very much. This is amazing. There were, I think literally 1 or 2 minor glitches that I had to ask them to fix. But I was off to the races at that point. So I can't imagine it being much better. And I've heard similar stories from other Campfire users, so I don't think we were the only one.
Well, I love that. And just for anybody listening as well, I don't benefit from it. I don't have anything in it as well. OTTO-MATES is an unbiased view. We don't, not like a pay to play or anything like that. So we're just trying to bring this to the forefront. So for anybody listening, I don't want everyone to think I'm putting you on a pedestal to say all these things either. So I would say kudos to the Campfire team for being able to have somebody come on a webinar and be able to speak so highly of not just the product, but also the implementation. Because I know that, especially from an ERP perspective, that can be really difficult and harrowing.
Absolutely. And that example from NetSuite to Campfire is one theme that I think will recur throughout our conversation today, and at least from my
Yeah.
perspective, which is um, it's very easy once you're locked into an ERP like NetSuite or Sage to say there aren't any other less expensive, better options. Like I'm at this level now of ERP. And I think that's probably true for some organizations, more complex, more complicated.
Sure.
But I think it's becoming less true every day. And it was certainly not true in our company's case. So I would, my takeaway from that was check your bias, like reevaluate, even if something seems like it's not possible or obvious, like it's worth the time, kick the tires, look around.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. One of the things when you and I spoke previously was around the idea that some of the things that you ended up automating, you kind of, I don't want to say stumbled into, but
Yeah.
maybe did exactly what you just recommended, right? Like you saw wasted time somewhere, something you don't have a lot of as a single man team over there. So curious if that led you to kind of like think about some other areas and explore other things that you ended up maybe stepping away from the current way you were doing it, whether it's manual or an existing system that then you shifted
Yeah.
to a new system.
Great question. And I'm glad you mentioned it because let's talk about ramp and bill pay. All right. So,
Okay.
and let me tell you the context in which my answer is, it answers your question. So myself and the controller, we had a bill pay process.
Mhm.
In terms of total transactions, it was about 50 transactions a month across all payment methods, wires, ACH, direct debit, credit card, maybe 60. But it, in my mind, wasn't that high of a volume. And with a
Mhm.
controller and a spreadsheet, it's like, hey, this is a low cost, no cost, easy process, seemingly easy process, right? The
Mhm.
bills come in the inbox and someone manages that inbox and you log them in the spreadsheet, you pay them, you got to process every Wednesday. Um, and so, yeah, it just seemed like it was under control, not a big deal. Well, then I learned about Ramp, and we were already using Expensify for their virtual cards and corporate cards.
Mhm.
But Ramp is just it's far superior. And I made the switch when I no longer had a controller because I realized that even that low volume bill pay was becoming a headache, and it was more time than it needed to be. Even if it was just a few hours a week, it's more time than it needs to be, and more
Right,
more
right.
headache than it needs to be. And let me just drill down another layer. So Ramp, when you use Ramp, they give you a personalized email address for your AP. Ours is like cxconnect.ai ap@ramp.com or something like this.
Yep.
And now at first glance, it's like that's a cute bells and whistles. Like I don't
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not going to pay for that. Um,
Yeah.
but when you get it, and I was like, well, let me just start using it. And wow, so it's such a small thing, but now I just have all of our vendors send the invoice directly to that email. It never even comes to my work email address, right? So all I get is, if I want to set it up accordingly, is a notification from Ramp saying you've got these invoices that have been sent to you. And of course, Ramp is super sexy UI, so you can route it through all your approvals. And I mean, it's just clean, easy, automated. And
Wow.
I'm delighted. I think we pay $20 a month for it, and that's for all of our virtual
Hmm.
cards and bill pay. So and I say I think because it's such a small amount. I'm like, I'm not even positive we pay for it, but um,
Yeah.
that and that has echoed throughout the organization. I mentioned we're a small team, but I issue virtual cards for very specific purposes to each developer on our team. It's highly controllable, highly customizable, and easy to do all of that. So, in terms of automation, from an automation perspective, I can automate the issuance of virtual cards with budgets and rules, which I could do in Expensify, but Ramp does it better. Um,
Okay.
and so I can't stress enough, even if it's just a seemingly small thing, a small process, a small lift, like automate it, make it better, and it might it might reveal even bigger wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Curious, in the same vein that I asked you with the shift from NetSuite to Campfire, when you went from Expensify to Ramp, was that like a fairly easy shift as well? Was there much time from an implementation perspective? Like, did it take a lot of maybe substantially more attention than what you may have probably already been spending weekly on the process.
Not at all. So it was really, I mean, I can tell you what it was. It was turning all of the virtual cards in Expensify to zero, sending a Slack message to the company saying, hey, we're switching from Expensify to Ramp for these reasons. Expect your new cards, next week. And then in Ramp, they configured it. Honestly, I don't even remember the process with Ramp because I think it was so clean and easy. So
Wow.
I don't remember it being a very hands-on ordeal. It was just me at the time. So it wasn't like I delegated that. But very, very simple process. And I'll add, Ramp does have an integration with Campfire, which was one of the reasons I was clued into Ramp. So now all my bills, it's automatically synced, two-way syncing with Ramp and Campfire. So automation achieved. And yeah, I literally now spend, I don't know, 10 minutes on accounts payable and bill pay a week. And that is, like I said, about 50 to 60 payments a month. And also now, instead of being a couple hours of pain and dread, it's 10 minutes of delight. So
yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because when you and I started talking and thinking about a theme for this webinar, you kind of mentioned like there are these incremental moments that that don't seem huge, but when they start to multiply, you can really get a lot of time back. So maybe even those small, almost forgettable moments where, yes, it took a couple hours. You probably didn't think much about it. Felt easy because it's just like an auto, like in your head, right? It's just, okay, I pick things up, I put things down. But it's some of those things that are so simple and repeatable and just something you just do. And I think that's when you realized you were kind of like wasting time on things. Is there anything else so Campfire obviously saved a lot of time, I should say, when doing RevRec and stuff like that. Ramp saved the day with bill pay. Anything else? Because now that we're like onto maybe some specific examples, I'm sure people could probably really use just some ideas on practical applications.
yeah, I'll give you another example of something where, and I think as accountants and finance people, CFOs, the month end closes, some people say sacred, or they have their spreadsheet for it. And, I don't know, sometimes I think we maybe romanticize it too much. Like, I didn't really care about my month end checklist as long as there is a checklist and
Just
somebody
get
else
it
is doing
done.
it. Yeah, like,
Yep, no,
is
the
it done or
steps are
not?
done.
Yeah. But that process I recently learned a few months ago of, and I think that some of these players have been in the space for a few years, but I recently learned about Numeric, right? And again, no profit incentive here, but Numeric is a month-end close SaaS tool. And when I first learned about it, again, it was kind of like ramping that email address. Like, well, isn't this just a glorified spreadsheet? Like, how much time is this really going to save me? Like, do we really need this? Is this just a symptom, an indication of too much venture capital chasing too few deals, that kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
But they had a free version. I was like, well, what's the harm? Let me just, let me try it.
Yeah.
And I encourage everyone, I don't know, I'm sure Numeric has some competitors. I don't know who they are, but if they do, again, kick the tires on it. But this was something I've been using for about 5 months now. And it is a glorified month-end checklist on the free version. But, and I've said I'm a single player accounting and finance org right now. So the value I'm getting relative to the value I could get out of even just the free version is a fraction, because they have, internal tool messaging, approval workflows for individual checklist items, right? I don't really need those because it's just me. But if I had any additional help, it would amplify the benefit I already get, which the benefit I get now, even in single player mode, is, again, it makes maybe not dreadful, but a not very exciting or sexy month-end close checklist out of a Google Sheet actually fun and delightful. The UX is good, the design is great, and it makes the month-end close fun. But even if that's all it does, even if it didn't save me time, which it does, but if it didn't, that would be sufficient, right? Just to, hey, let's brighten up a rather drab situation, right? But the time it saves is in things like, one click of a button and it automatically loads the current month's checklist. Great. And then, of course, you have the deadlines, who needs to do the step, who needs to approve the step. And it gives you, and this is where the automation comes in, and something I didn't realize I needed or would benefit from, which is during the close period, I've set it up so that I get an automatic Slack notification every morning at 9 a.m. It tells me, hey, your month end close for April 2025 is 78% complete. Today, you have these 3 tasks that are due, and upcoming tasks not yet due are these. Or if it's 2 months past the close deadline, hey, you have these 5 items that are overdue, jackass. You need to get on it, right? So they are, it's one of those things. It's like you don't really think like, do I need that? No, you don't need it, but it really starts to amplify and boost. And it's free right now. So like, the paid version, you get some AI-driven flux analysis and other bells and whistles that I would imagine can automate things even more and make life even easier. Which, as we grow the team again, I look forward to paying for and
Yeah,
benefiting from.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully now with some of the cost savings, you can go out and hire some folks as you guys become profitable again. That's awesome.
Knocking on the door.
Yeah, I love it. So I think, one of the questions I would have is, so many teams I hear a lot is like, we're too busy to automate that mundane thing. Like, it's working today. If it's not broken, don't fix it type of thing. But, or maybe they feel overwhelmed by like all the choices today too. And I know that's a very real thing. And part of why I started OTTO-MATES, I think the barrier to entry for these emerging technologies is so low that now it's like, you don't know where to start. So we'll hopefully help people kind of sort through some of that. But for those leaders, that are maybe in that, like, we're too busy. If it's not broken, don't fix it type of mentality. Like, what kind of recommendation would you give to maybe think differently on that point, just so that we can start to reframe how people are thinking these things? Like, the reason I came up with that was just when you said something about you get a Slack message with how many, like the percentage completion and the tasks you have to do that day. If I had something in my life to just tell me what I needed to do every day, I'd be in a pretty damn good spot, because I wake up and I have like 3 different spots I go to. Plus I need to make sure, all the calendars are aligned and everything. So that feels like just a quick and easy win where you take a little bit of time for, a big sort of cost saver, or even just mentality saver on the back end. Like, any kind of advice you would give there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's maybe 2-pronged advice. And the first one, so help me remember if I forget to come back to the second one. But the first one is, and I don't want to come off as insensitive, because I get it. We're all pressed for time. We're all trying to do more with less, which I think is a good thing. But I would say, like, find the time, right? It's worth it. And I think maybe it's worth, issuing a challenge to oneself and saying, do I want to be the type of accounting and finance leader that doesn't do something because it's hard, or that it might take a little extra sacrifice if there's greener pastures on the other end, or not? And I think doing hard things is fun and something that should be embraced, right? It's type 2 fun. Wasn't fun in the moment, but after the fact, it's like, oh, wasn't that awesome, right?
Plus, you can walk away with bragging rights.
Yeah, I don't want to be insensitive. I mean, obviously, it's very hard to find the time. I get it. It is difficult, but find the time, make it happen. And then the other piece of advice is, if it is, acknowledging that it can be hard and that it might not be possible for reasons in that example, then start small, right? The numeric example, it's like, hey, it costs nothing. It's a low lift, and these tools are trying to reduce the friction, right, as much as possible. And so maybe it's not a complete, revamp from Expensify to Ramp. And I acknowledge my org is small, our volume is small, so I can make some of these sweeping changes and speak about it brashly, but when others can't. So I acknowledge that. So if that's the case, then start small. Find the little tweaks and improvements, and just let those compound, right? And I think it'd be surprising how much gets done over time.
I would agree. I think, it's funny. One of the things that I've been asked before is like, how do you keep the momentum going on like larger projects, which I think is a great thing to keep in mind, especially with those longer implementations. And I always think about it as like, if you can celebrate those little wins, they keep you going. So like maybe it's
Yep.
just to your point, just find some low hanging fruit, go after it, automate it. You might be really surprised by how much time you save. Like that compounding savings of time really does help. And if it's not just for cost savings, if nothing else too, it's just for, being able to log out a half hour earlier or something like that, and just getting a little bit of your life back. Um, and so I was going to close out with a question for you, Cody, on what's one simple action this week that someone could take. I kind of liked your challenge. And so I might give one. And if you have a different one, great. But one simple thing, I love that challenge. So, anybody listening, I would challenge everyone to go find, I'm going to do it today too. So, that was a good challenge. Find something today, even if it's small and minimal, but something that can make your life a little bit easier. Like take the time today so that tomorrow and next week and the next month and for the next year, it feels a little bit easier. But you can either, I kind of stole it from you, so you can either say that would be it, or anything else that you would maybe recommend somebody taking as a simple action this week that could really make a difference for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo that. Like, find the small thing. I would say, some people say don't sweat the little things, and I would say sweat the little things. Like,
I
identify
like that.
even just the smallest thing and say, why do I hate when I get this email every week? Why does my stomach immediately give me an ache? Or every time I get the Slack notification, why does it hurt? Or when it's time for me to do this activity, why does it suck? Maybe just be a little reflective. Take the 30 seconds to ask why, and if it's worth, can I punch this thing in the face today? Can I just get it out of my way?
I love that. I'm going to steal it, but I will give credit where credit is due whenever I use it. But I like that idea of sweat the small stuff. So I
Sweat the
think
small stuff.
that's great advice. Awesome. Well, Cody, thank you so much. We try to keep this to a half hour just so we don't take up too much of everybody's time, but I think this was super valuable. I appreciate you going deep on some of the technology and not being afraid to call bullshit on the stuff that feels hard. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody listening.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody.